My greatest success in life has been creating She Writes Woman, which is a movement that gives mental health a voice in Nigeria by empowering people who actually live with mental health conditions to tell their own stories, co-create their own solutions, and advocate for their own rights. And for me in particular, it's really two things. First is launching Nigeria's first 24/7 toll-free mental health helpline, which in the space of 3 months, we're able to log over 1,200 calls. And we have averted over the last 5 years over 50 potential suicide cases. And on the other hand, it's been the first person with a mental health condition to testify before the National Assembly in Nigeria on the rights of persons with mental health conditions, and thereafter, being able to stop the bill from passing. So yeah, those are my greatest successes in life, and I achieved those really by just being true to myself, owning my story, speaking my truth in the face of overwhelming stigma, and being able to call out to, use our values at Right Women Connection, vulnerability, courage, compassion, community, collective change, to be able to call out to our own community and people like us to be able to make this an actual movement. People underestimate you as a young woman. I mean, there are levels to it, really. So you're a young woman, young woman, black woman in hijab. And so there are a lot of stereotypes around that. And so people are either cautious about engaging with you, or they don't, reach you as much as, anyone that's going to do any big things at all. So I believe, for me, it has been more of that youth factor, being young and being in a hijab, that perhaps have been some of my own barriers in a way. But I think the barriers have also been the reasons why I was able to break through, because they didn't see me coming, that type of thing. So it made sense, and it's okay. Um, so for me, that's really what it is. I would say there are other things, but as a female leader, those particular things, have been my biggest barriers. Sometimes you read some of these things, and what happens is you're talking about something with regards to leadership. And as a woman, you're being asked about things like your husband and family and, your home. And it undermines everything that you are, because it somewhat sends this message that no matter how big you get, no matter how much you accomplish, no matter how impactful you are, your worth and value as a woman will always be tied to, all of those aspects of your life. And I think it can be very, very annoying, whether on a local level or international level. I find that a lot of women face that. We can start by honoring existing legislation that has created some level of quota system in terms of representation. Nigeria is supposed to have about 35% women representation in politics, and we haven't even been able to get that. So I think first things first is about, making a deliberate effort. Any form of inclusion or any attempt at representation is always deliberate. People don't mistakenly become, all inclusive, or just ensuring that, there's a lot of diversity, inclusion, belonging type thing going on. It has to be deliberate. And until we have that sense of political will, then it possibly would not happen. When you continue to rate women as the people in the room, the people at home, then you're less likely to see them beyond that. So Nigeria has a lot to do first in even honoring the existing legislation, but beyond that, having the political will to ensure that, there's a deliberate attempt to bring more women into political space. But I have to say that it's not just enough to say you want to bring women into a space, is that you have to ensure that the space is created, curated, and is adjusted to fit the needs of any woman. So that is super important in ensuring representation. For us, it's really about how can we empower women who live with mental health conditions and psychosocial disabilities to take up space. And that starts with how you view yourself with in spite of, because, despite your mental health condition. And so we are first tackling that in terms of change narratives, normalizing conversations, but we're also pulling people in the next step, which is really knowing your rights. Because in order for you to be empowered enough to go ahead and take up space politically as a female in Nigeria, then you have to first understand, you have to begin to work on your own narrative from the inside, how you think of yourself, then know your rights, then you can take up space. So for us, it is empowering people with lived experience of mental health and psychosocial disabilities to know who they are, to take up their own space. Then, they're able to know their rights. And with that, they're able to lean in because now they're coming from a place of power and, self-fulfillment and self-worth as against feeling less. So now you're able to go to the table and demand for what is actually yours for the taking. You can do what you may consider as very little, but it will make such a profound effect because you're a woman and because you have already been underestimated. So it is an opportunity for us all as young women to lean into politics, whether it is politics from within or from without, but to lean into it and begin to champion what is already ours. Because, feminist views or feminist governance or women in politics, I mean, we can see the evidence all around us across the world, especially in the last year, where women leaders have handled things differently. You have what it takes, whether through conditioning, whether through socialization, whether through biology. You have what it takes that will set you up for a different, refreshing type of leadership that the world needs now more than ever. So take up space.